The world feels different in ways that can be easily measured and felt, as if it has been turned upside down. Something is shifting beneath the surface of reality itself. Systems that once seemed immovable are beginning to crack. Institutions that once commanded unquestioned trust are being exposed as false. Truths that were hidden are rising out of the shadows. And alongside this unveiling, this revelation, there is another dark presence, unrelenting, adaptive, difficult to define, but unmistakably there. For centuries, humanity has spoken of a figure known as the Antichrist, a deceiver, a disruptor, an adversary to truth. But what if we have misunderstood what that truly means? What if the Antichrist is not simply someone who arrives at the end of time, but an energy that emerges whenever truth begins to break through illusion? Today we journey into dark waters and explore the Antichrist and the Age of Revelation. With war, pestilence, and unexplained space phenomena, many are asking if this is the apocalypse. However, the word apocalypse does not mean destruction. It means revelation, a time of unveiling. The lifting of the veil between the seen illusion and the hidden truth. And if that is true, then we may not be approaching the end. We may be living in the moment where everything is being revealed, and that changes everything. To understand the Antichrist, we have to return to the source of the concept, the Bible. In the First Epistle of John, it is written, "Many antichrists have come into the world." Not one, many. This alone challenges the modern narrative, because the Antichrist is often imagined as a singular future individual, a final villain at the end of history. But the text suggests something far more complex. The Antichrist is not only a person, it is a pattern, a presence, a force that moves through time. It appears wherever truth is distorted, where power demands submission, where illusion is mistaken for reality. If Christ is love, truth, alignment, and divine awareness, the Antichrist is opposition to truth, distortion of reality, false representation of the divine, and something that replaces truth with imitation. The Antichrist is not just something that opposes truth, but something that imitates it, not obvious darkness, but convincing false light. And if many antichrists have already come, then the question is no longer if it exists, but how it manifests now. And within this unfolding, this unveiling, there is another set of symbols that begin to take on new meaning. The book of Revelation references a seven-headed beast rising from the sea. A force given authority, power over nations, influence over the world, not hidden but visible, recognized, even followed. And then the beast creates another, one made from an image that speaks, a second beast. And one born from the earth that looks like a lamb, but speaks like a dragon. It does not dominate through force. It persuades, it performs signs, it shapes belief, it guides perception, and it leads the world not to truth, but to allegiance. And so the second beast speaks, not as something terrifying, but as something convincing, something that appears trustworthy, rational, even beneficial. It does not ask for resistance. It invites agreement. It shapes narratives. It defines what is true and what is not. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, it aligns perception with power. The first beast symbolizes power. The second symbolizes control. And then comes the mark. Not only as a symbol, but as a threshold, a point of participation, a moment where belief becomes action, where alignment becomes visible, where what one follows begins to define what one can access, so that no one can buy or sell unless he has the mark. For generations, this was imagined as something imposed. But what if it is also something accepted, something entered into willingly? The Antichrist dwells in a world where deception becomes so complete that it is indistinguishable from truth by the signs that it is allowed to work. It deceives those who dwell on earth. For generations, these images were interpreted as distant, mysterious, and symbolic of some far-off future. But today, they feel closer, not because we can point to a single figure and say, there he is, but because the conditions described are no longer unimaginable. We are living in an age where images speak, where reality can be simulated, where truth can be manufactured, where something can appear real without ever being true. And this is where the conversation deepens, because revelation does not only bring truth to the surface, it also forces illusion to evolve. As more people begin to question, as more information becomes available, as hidden systems are exposed, deception does not disappear. It adapts. It becomes more refined, more intelligent, more convincing. The second epistle to the Thessalonians describes a strong delusion, not a simple lie, but a distortion so powerful that people believe it willingly. And this may be one of the defining features of the age we are entering, not just deception, but deception that feels like truth. We see this most clearly in the realm of technology. Artificial intelligence has given humanity something unprecedented, the ability to generate reality, to create voices that never spoke, faces that never existed, events that never happened, and at the same time, to uncover patterns, expose corruption, and reveal information at a scale never before possible. It is both a tool for revelation and a tool for the Antichrist at once. The Bible speaks of the second beast as an image that is given the ability to speak. For most of history, this sounded like metaphor. Now it sounds like a description of artificial intelligence. But again, the danger is not the technology itself. It is the surrender of our discernment and sovereignty. Because the Antichrist, in its most subtle form, does not demand belief through force. It earns it. It presents itself as helpful, as necessary, as inevitable. It convinces you that what you see in front of you is not real. And over time, it becomes trusted, not because it is true, but because it is convincing. As the French poet Charles Baudelaire wrote, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist. But this is not only an external phenomenon, it is internal, because the Antichrist is not just something that appears in the world. It is something that can arise within consciousness itself. So, what is the whisper of the Antichrist within? It is a voice that distorts truth, a tendency toward illusion, an attachment to what feels comfortable rather than what is real. It is the reinforcement of the illusion of separation, the opposite of oneness. It is what many traditions have called the ego, the constructed self, the identity built on fear, control, and separation, the part of us that resists truth, not because it is false, but because it is uncomfortable. And this is where the idea of spiritual warfare begins to take on a different meaning, not as a battle of flesh and blood, but as a battle for perception, for awareness, for the alignment of the mind with truth. Because the battlefield is not only in the world around us, it is within us. Between clarity and confusion, between truth and distortion, between the voice that seeks what is real and the voice that seeks what is comfortable. In this sense, the Antichrist is not only a figure or system, it is a force that can permeate and influence our state of being, one that moves us away from truth and light and deeper into separation and darkness, bathing us in comfort, thereby steeping us in spiritual stagnation. Because the ego does not seek what is true, it seeks what reinforces itself. It clings to narratives, it defends illusion, it rejects anything that threatens its sense of identity. And in doing so, it becomes the perfect ground for deception to take root. Not through force, but through agreement, through the quiet acceptance of what feels right, even when it is not true. This is the nature of spiritual warfare. This is the force of the Antichrist, not always loud, not always visible, but constant, feeding the ego with a constant barrage of false ideas that beckon fear, ideas that make us susceptible to the illusions of lack and scarcity. And this is where the idea of revelation becomes deeply personal, because to live in an age of revelation is to be confronted not only with the truth that there is evil abound in the world, but with the truth of the evils that dwell within the self. The illusions we carry, the beliefs we protect, the identities we defend against seeking the truth. And the deeper question beneath it all, in this moment of unveiling, which voice are we aligning with? There is another layer to this, perhaps the most subtle of all, because not all deception appears as darkness. Some of it appears as light, as guidance, as salvation. It does not arrive as something to fear. It arrives as something to follow. And this is what makes it so powerful. The Antichrist does not repel, it attracts. It coaxes you in, it does not force. Thus, the Antichrist within speaks in a voice that feels familiar, comforting, even authoritative. It offers certainty in a time of confusion. And in doing so, it plays on our human emotions, bypassing one of the most important faculties we have, discernment. This is the deception that does not announce itself as false. It presents itself as truth. In the second epistle to the Corinthians, there is a warning that even Satan disguises himself as an angel of light. Not as darkness, but as something that appears righteous, helpful, even holy. And this is where deception becomes most dangerous, because it aligns itself with our desires, our need for safety, our longing for meaning, our hope that someone or something will show us the way. It tells us that if we start a never-ending war, the Messiah will come and save us all. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, it replaces the need to seek truth with the comfort of believing we have already found it. This is how illusion sustains itself, not by opposing truth directly, but by imitating it. And in an age of revelation, where truth is rising and the veil is lifting, this form of deception becomes even more refined, convincing, and difficult to detect. Because it does not stand in opposition to awakening. It mirrors it, creating alternative facts. It echoes the language of truth while quietly redirecting it. And this is why the most effective deception is not the one that is feared, but the one that is trusted. So, what does it mean to live in the age of revelation? It means that what was hidden is becoming visible, that systems built on illusion are beginning to fracture, that truth, however uncomfortable, is rising to the surface. But it also means that illusion is fighting to survive until its very last breath. That deception is becoming more sophisticated, that the line between what is real and what is constructed is becoming harder to see. The question then is not whether the Antichrist exists. It is whether we can recognize it, not through fear, not through speculation, but through discernment, through the ability to see clearly, even when clarity is difficult. If we are living in an age where truth is being revealed, yet the Antichrist is also creating more realistic illusions, the question becomes, how do we remain in truth? Because staying aligned with truth, what many traditions would call Christ, is not about adopting a religious label. It is about orientating toward truth and oneness, and choosing this alignment again and again, moment by moment. In the Gospel of John, it is said, "The truth will set you free." Truth does not control, it does not demand, it liberates. Truth is recognizing oneness in a world filled with the divisiveness that is the mark of the Antichrist. And that truth, grounded in divine love, becomes the compass. And in an age where illusion is becoming more convincing, staying in truth may be less about seeking something new and more about removing what is false. While the Antichrist energy currently feels suffocatingly rampant, we are reminded of Ecclesiastes. What has been will be again. What has been done will be done again. There is nothing new under the sun. War, pestilence, and dark forces are not new to the earth. The battle we fight has been fought for eternity. Revelation may not be a story about the end of the world. It may be a story about the end of illusion. Layer by layer, until what remains is something real. We are not simply witnessing chaos. We are witnessing exposure and disclosure. And in that exposure, there is a choice. To follow what is loud or what is true. To accept what is presented or to question it. To surrender perception or to refine it. The age of revelation is not something happening to us. It is something unfolding through us. And the Antichrist, whatever form it takes, does not rise in spite of this awakening, but alongside it. Because as truth emerges, the Antichrist and the illusion do not disappear. They evolve. And perhaps that is the real revelation. That the greatest battle is not for the world itself, but for the ability to see it clearly. Thank you for watching this video. Like and subscribe for more spiritual content. Peace profound.